Hey guys, welcome back to more political chatter. Today we will be talking about this new poll from Mass Inc., an A+ rated pollster that shows Kamala Harris with a truly tremendous lead, a shockingly huge lead in the state of Wisconsin. Mass Inc., again, this A+ pollster says that Kamala Harris will win 53 to 46. That is a 7% lead in Wisconsin. Wisconsin being a state that voted for Joe Biden in 2020 in the last election by only zero point 0.6. So obviously, to see Kamala Harris ahead by 7 in Wisconsin, that is absolutely tremendous for the Democratic Party and for Kamala Harris. If the results were anything like a 7-point lead in Wisconsin, then it would mean a landslide of the battleground states for sure. It would mean that North Carolina flips blue. She holds all the 2020 Biden states. And it would mean that Florida and Texas Republican states would get incredibly close. So again, A+ pollster here from Mass Inc. You probably haven't heard of them. They don't do polls very often. They're very underrated. People don't really watch out for them. Is what I'm trying to say. But when they do release them, they tend to be spot on. As you can see, they are the best of the best. An A+ rated pollster here, Mass Inc. So to see Kamala Harris ahead by 7 in a period where, we've been hearing about how she has been falling in some of the polls. Polling is very complicated right now. So this is absolutely very good news for the Kamala Harris campaign, some reassurance that she is ahead in a lot of these states. So before, we get into the analysis of this poll, right? The 2020 polling, what it means for 2024, her lead. She only has a 1.8% lead or 1.9% lead, or yeah, just 1.8 statewide. Before we get to that, let's just talk about what if Wisconsin did actually vote by 7 points for Kamala Harris. What would that mean for the rest of the electoral map? Well, this is my current prediction, right? I have Kamala Harris, Tim Walz at 319 electoral votes, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance at 219. I think that they win all of the battleground states, all 7 of them, and that they make Texas and Florida close. Now, I didn't think Wisconsin would go 7 points for Harris. But what if it did? What if it went from 0.6% for Biden's margin, to 7% for Harris? Well, in 4 years, that would be an unheard of 6.4% trend towards the Democrats, towards the left, right? It goes from 0.6 to 7. That would be a 6.4% trend to the left. Now, again, what I was talking about before, that would mean a blowout for the Democratic Party. Michigan, if Democrats are gaining 6.4%, Michigan would become a 7.2% margin for Harris. Just imagine that. Of course, Wisconsin would be likely. Michigan would be likely. Pennsylvania, of course, would be likely if you add 6. That's almost a 7-point margin in Pennsylvania right there. You'd have North Carolina go from 1.3. If Democrats are adding 6.4, then they would actually be a likely Democratic state. Harris would win by more than 5%. Now, this is not a prediction. This is just, I just want to emphasize what would happen if a poll like this did end up being correct. If we go back to election day, it's a blowout that no one expected, and we say, wow, that Mass Inc. poll was correct. This is what the results would look like. Georgia would go from 0.2 for Biden to, of course, a likely margin for Kamala Harris. Again, she's adding 6.4 from where Joe Biden was in 2020. New Mexico would become safe. Minnesota would stay likely. Virginia would become safe as well. Maine would become safe too. So you have a batch of these states that were, pretty solidly for Biden in 2020 that are now becoming safe, which is not something that we typically see. Arizona would become likely, as well as Nevada, of course. Now, that's not it. It's not just those, core battleground states that we talk about a lot. You would see the state of Florida flip to Kamala Harris. If she's gaining 6 points, then she's winning it by somewhere around 2.5 points. That's a lean margin in Florida. And then the big one, 40 electoral votes, Texas went to Trump by 5.6 in the last election. Harris would win the state by 0.8% if she is gaining 6.4 in every single state. So I won't go through every state, but it would be an electoral landslide. This is how each state would fall. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz would win 389 electoral votes. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance would win 149. This is, as I made a video about, this is the 7-state path to an electoral landslide for Kamala Harris. This is it right here. So If this A plus poll is in fact correct, if not, then they're losing that rating substantially. But if this A plus poll is correct, then and Harris is gaining 6.5 points from 2020 in a state like Wisconsin, then maybe not every state, maybe not Texas and Florida, but the vast majority of these states would go to Kamala Harris, including all the battleground states like North Carolina, which would be a flip, and it would be an absolute electoral landslide. But again, this is just one single poll. The vast majority of polls don't have Harris at 7%. She only has a 1.8% lead statewide. That has been substantially reduced to her peak, I believe, yeah, of 3.8. She was once at 3.8. She's now at only 1.8. She has lost 2 points. That hurts. So, um, when you look at the polling, it's not bad for her because, I'll just say this. Let me put it this way. You never see Donald Trump leading any Wisconsin polls by 7%. You barely ever see him leading a poll at all. This average is so low because Kamala Harris is winning a lot of these polls by a point, by 2 points, by 3 points, the vast majority of them. It's not because Donald Trump is leading in a substantial amount of polls. There's only been one, or only really two polls that have been conducted, at all recently. One of them is from Trafalgar, a Republican-leaning group, but the other is from Emerson with the Hill, Emerson College. That one was pretty recent, but you see, how many polls are listed right here? And only two of them show Donald Trump ahead. Kamala Harris is the only one who is leading some certain polls by 7 points, by 6 points, by 6 points. Down here some days ago from Morning Consult by 8 points, by 9 points. So, you're not going to see Donald Trump lead polls like this, and it's very reminiscent of the 2020 election. Joe Biden was overestimated tremendously in the state of Wisconsin, but he was the only one really leading in any polls. It was, I don't know if at all, Donald Trump didn't really lead in polls at all. And yes, Joe Biden got those +7, right, +8, +9 polls more frequently than almost every time, basically, more frequently than Kamala Harris is now. But again, this time around, Kamala Harris is the only one leading, in some polls by 9, or 8 or 7, right, in this latest Mass Inc. poll. Donald Trump is not. Just like 2020. Donald Trump didn't really lead in any polls. He's barely leading. He's only leading in two recent polls in 2024. So again, Joe Biden was heavily overestimated in the state. He was expected to win by 8.4%. He only led by 0.6. But again, I believe that Kamala Harris will not be as overestimated, not nearly, if at all, overestimated, at least relative to the overestimation of the famous overestimation of Joe Biden in the 2020 election, as well as Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. Kamala Harris is a very different candidate. Donald Trump, more importantly, is a different candidate. I don't believe there are that many hidden Trump voters. So a poll like this, I think that the Harris campaign and people, political analysts shouldn't scoff at this because again, they were very common in 2020, but pollsters still hadn't cracked the code of the hidden Trump voter. I don't think there are many hidden Trump voters left. I really don't. And when you look at voter registration, there are a lot of demographics that are now registering to vote for the first time, and pollsters frequently miss. If they turn out in high numbers, pollsters frequently miss the turnout of first-time voters. That's what allowed Donald Trump to really succeed in the Rust Belt in the 2016 election. He was able to turn out young white men who were voting for the first time, and he was able to prevail. Voters failed to capture that. So, Kamala Harris, we're looking at voter registration compared to 2020. Young African American women, voter registration is up. Is almost tripling from the same time period in 2020. Tripling. I mean, that's absolutely insane. I know Wisconsin is an overwhelmingly white state, but there are a significant portion of African Americans around the urban areas that are critically important when it comes to turnout. Running up your numbers if you're a Democrat in blue urban areas. But still, it just shows how excited, much more excited, Democrats are about this election. And again, Donald Trump, when it comes to the polling, being overestimated in polling, I just don't think that Donald Trump has the same level of hidden support as he did in 2020 in 2016 as he does in 2024. I think pollsters have kind of cracked the code on this. I mean, looking at these polls, I really doubt that Donald Trump will be able to do this well, win by 2 points. I don't even think he's going to come within a point. I really don't. I think that Harris will win pretty substantially. And I know I am and again, this is not my prediction, by the way, but in my actual prediction, which I showed at the beginning of the video, you all know that I am probably yeah, I mean, definitely overestimating Kamala Harris compared to the polls. But again, I do think in a good amount of states that she will outperform the polls. I really do. Looking at everything, looking at the registration numbers, looking at the voter enthusiasm, those were the things that really did spell disaster for Republicans in the 2022 elections that we failed to look at. And I believe that it will be very reminiscent of 2022 when Kamala Harris will actually surprise a lot of people, I feel, and pretty strongly outperform the polling as Democrats did across the country in 2022. So a shocking poll from Mass Inc., a Wisconsin poll, and this Wisconsin, probably one of her worst performing battleground states, not in polling, but what I think, based off analysis, where I think she will do well. So this is a great poll for her. She absolutely wants to see more of this. So thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to comment down suggestions below. Let me see. Yep, I do have my picture up. So again, please subscribe, watch my latest video to get your latest election updates for the 2020